Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back. We are at episode 53, and this is a very strange and cheerful and, did I mention strange? Episode that I think is mostly knitting and blather with a good bit of strategy tossed in, because so much has been happening since I came back from Mammoth, I can hardly keep up. First, in the warm thanks department, thank you, Knitting in the Shy. I do enjoy your posts, and I had to laugh. Apparently, you have been seduced by the chocolate chaffles. Welcome to the dark side of keto. Remember, we have chaffles, we have brownies, we have bacon. Erica, and thank you for your very generous helping of coffee. I appreciate the support to keep the podcast running, and your kind comments mean the world to me, believe me. Barry, you're very welcome. Barry is the manager and I think owner of Sierra Cottons and Wools. And again, I'm just going to say it one more time. Incredibly good LYS out in Bishop, California. What a fun place, and I so look forward to going back. What else? I'm still carrying the link for the California State Smart Card that shows that you've been vaccinated for COVID. The city of Los Angeles is now requiring proof of vaccination to go inside certain businesses, including restaurants, eateries, bars, etc. So the easiest way to do it is to carry the smart card on your phone. Yes, that is one of the legitimate ways to prove that you've been vaccinated. But regardless of what your local mandates are, if you need proof of vaccination, rather than carry the cardboard card, you can just carry an e-card on your phone. All the information is on the site, and the link is in the show notes. The show notes for this episode, of course, as always, are on our group on Ravelry, and also at the blog for the podcast, which is cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Having said all this, you are saying, but Gemma, what's on your hooks and needles? Well, son of my gun, I finished the wild lettuce shawl and I blocked it. Oh, is it beautiful. I did a really half-witted blocking job. You can see it in the picture because I didn't have enough pins. Now, what I should have been using are these extremely good blocking wires that I bought ages ago from Mimi's, wait a minute, let me get her name correct. I don't know why she's not doing this anymore. Mimi's Needle Basket. And she gave me these great wires, and I still keep putting them in the wrong place and not finding them when I need them. So there I am, blocking this insanely beautiful shawl, barely, with too few pins, and it really needs wires. And it still came out beautiful, and pictures are in the show notes. This is a very easy lace pattern. It comes out as all Michelle Millers do, that is fickle knitter, as all fickle knitters do, because she's the designer. It comes out looking way more complex than it is. Very, very simple, very, very pleasant pattern. This is the Wild Lettuce Shawl. I cannot recommend it enough. It is in Fiber Files colorway, and Fiber Files alias now Sterling Ridge is no longer dyeing, but I had to finish it in Lisa Souza's yarn, which is a colorway called St. Louis Blues, and it is in the yarn base Niam, and as in Nancy, Y-A-M as in Mary, which is a fantastic cashmere merino base, and it came out looking just beautiful. In progress, well, I have mad startitis. I can't explain what came over me. I had to go to a medical appointment. I thought I would need a lot of time to knit, so I started looking for easy, fast things to knit. Bang, startitis. It takes so little when you think about it, to kick off a flare-up or a recurrence of chronic startitis, doesn't it, kids? You bet. So I have a few new projects and some ones that I always keep going. First of all, speaking of Fiberfiles or Sterling Ridge's beautiful, beautiful yarns, I had a whole bunch of them from like 2014, 2015, and I found them and have been using them. And I just adore them. I wish she would die again. She does the most insanely beautiful semi-solids, as you can tell from both the Wild Lettuce Shawl and the Harvest Blueberry Waffle Socks. This was an insanely beautiful brown gradient from chocolate down through golden brown, like a honey gold brown. So pretty. So as I do with all semi-solids that I want to make into socks, I use the Blueberry Waffle Socks pattern. The link is in the show notes. You really should look at this pattern. It's mindlessly easy. You do your typical sock, but I do top-down socks. I do 2 inches, as always, of knit 1, purl 1 rib. And then you go into the pattern stitch, and it is simply 2 rows of knitting, followed by 2 rows of knit 2, purl 2. If you look at my sock, it has an afterthought heel, which you can't see in that picture. And I tend to go straight down to the tip to the toe. Until I get to the toe decreases, I do the pattern on the top. When I get to the foot, I stop doing the pattern all around. On the underside of the foot, I do just stockinette. It's a nice break from doing the pattern all the way around it. It means you're not standing on purl stitches, which I always think can be a little rough. It makes a very beautiful, very elegant sock. So I have finished sock number 1 as I record this, and I am in the middle of the knit 1, purl 1 rib on sock number 2. What I love about the Blueberry Waffle Sock pattern, once you've done a good pair that fit you, you now know how many repeats of the pattern to do. So, for example, for my 7-inch leg, it's 2 inches of knit 1, purl 1 rib, followed by 13 pattern repeats of the knit 2 rows and then knit 2, purl 2 rows for 2 rows. So those 4 rows get repeated 13 times. And then I'm at the heel. So I do the waist yarn for the afterthought heel, and then it takes 16 more pattern repeats to get down 5 3/4 inches to where I start the toe decreases. It's a wonderful little formula, and they're very easy to do, and you just can tell without measuring how far you are by how many repeats of the waffle pattern you have. And then, of course, I do the standard stockinette toe decreases and a stockinette heel, which is the same pattern as the toe for me. Okay, so that is cooking right along. Twin Faces vest should be done by now, so of course it's not. I tried to do the ribbing at the neckline. Now, the vest is based on the pattern in Ann Budd's Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns, which if you don't own, I don't know why not. It's the best book. It's monster patterns, and yeah, you have to work with them to adapt them to your size. But basically anything you want to make is in there, with the exception, I think, of leggings or something odd like that. Socks, hats, gloves, mitts, vests, bottom-up sweaters. It's just such a marvelous book. I don't knit my sweaters that way. I do them top-down, as you may have noticed. But seriously, if you want to spend only once for a collection, this is your book for monster patterns. I think the other comparable collection is Tin Can Knit's collection of beginner patterns like Learn to Knit or Let's Knit Together, something like that. They're superb. And these things should be in everybody's collection as far as I'm concerned. Eclectic though I am, use my recommendations at your own risk. At any rate, so I don't know why, but I was doing this and I thought, oh yeah, I should do the neckline ribbing. And when I did my own last vest, for some reason I don't understand, when I did the vest in Pines, I said, you know, I did that neckline on my size 7 needles, which are the larger needle, but you should really do it on size 5s. What was I thinking? So I did hers on the size 5s. I don't think my dog could get his head through it. Very silly. So I pulled it out. So I'm back to, I need to do the neckline. I really hate picking up stitches. I don't know why. I do it perfectly fine. They come out looking great. But I have to go do the neckline. It really would only take me 2 to 3 nights to finish the sweater. I'm just kind of hung up because I got startitis, I guess. The temperature blanket is caught up to November, which is making me happy. I'm recording this on November 8th at 2:48 p.m. And what can I tell you about the temperature blanket? It's huge. It's glorious. It fits the bed well, and it's right on course to fit the bed beautifully. I am now, thank goodness, looking at finally clearing out this huge amount of floor space that I've given over to the box of yarns for the temperature blanket. That was the good news. Bad news is I got way too much sport weight acrylic yarn left over from it, but I can always donate it. I'll find something to do with it. But I just love the temperature blanket. It's not finished on December 31st, even if I've caught it up by that point, because I really do want to put an edging on it. And I've got so much extra yarn, there's no problem with that. I could make it go right down to the floor on every side of the bed. What amazes me about it is you think, here's a project that I'm going to do for 365 days minimum. Am I still going to like it at the end? And the answer is yes. It's been fascinating. I may take my extra yarn, reassign the colors to suit the yarns I have, and just do a temperature scarf for next year, except I really don't like wearing acrylic. But it makes a fine washable blanket. The other option, blankets for the dog's crates. You know, why not? On to the start-itis. Well, you know about the Noro Heart scarf. That's a bit frozen right now. I'm in the middle of the second of 6 hearts, and I really like it. I got no complaints. It's taught me intarsia. I just got start-itis, as I mentioned. So I haven't worked on that too much, but I did start a Ricky hat. I had extra silk Polworth DK weight yarn from Lisa Souza in the insanely beautiful color Kanapali, which you may remember I used to make a Ducat sweater last year, and I love it. So I thought, I should do something with this last skein. It's hanging around and bugging me. I've got it in my spare skeins bag in my bedroom. So I thought, let's just get it out of there. You can't have too many hats. You can't have too many cowls or scarves. That's kind of or middies. Those are the things. We go through them all the time in my house. So, it's just easy to go, oh, did you lose your scarf? Here's a new one. That's kind of how it works. So I thought, right. And so I said, DK, what's a good go-to for the DK weight yarn in a hat pattern? And of course, it's the Ricky hat, which is R as in rabbit, I, K, K, E. And it's a freebie on Ravelry. It's a very simple pattern. 15 rounds of garter ridge. So 15 rounds of knit 1 row, purl 1 row. And then above it, you just go to larger needles and do the same thing till it's as long as you want. It can make a great slouchy hat. And this is my second Ricky, and it's a very satisfying, very mindless, kind of easy pattern when you're knitting in bed at night. When you don't have time, if you're knitting and you can't focus too much, really great pattern. So it's coming out fine. I'm above the 15 garter ridges that make the hat band, which I do on size 5s. I'm onto the hat on size 7s. Link in the show notes. Then the other thing I said, while I'm getting rid of these old skeins that are hanging around in my bedroom, here is the leftover Pines yarn that I used to make my gorgeous vest. So I said, what's a good go-to hat for worsted weight? And of course, my go-to is the coronet hat. This is a nitty pattern. It's free. It's insanely beautiful. Very simple. The band is a braid. And it's a simple, easy braid. I forget how many stitches. Let me think. 9 plus 8. So it's 17 stitch wide braid. Very simple. I do use a cable needle on it. I know how to cable without a cable needle. I prefer a cable needle. Do what you like. It's okay. Be happy when you knit. So it's, for my head size, it's 18 repeats of the basic pattern, which I think is like 11 rows. It's very, very easy. If you have never done a cable, this is a great place to start. You do this band, you do a provisional cast on, and you do 18 repeats for my head size, which is, ginormous. And then you pull the yarn, run your needles through it, pull the provisional cast on, run your needle through it, pull the cast on, graft the 2 edges of the band together, and you have a nice circle band. And then you pick up stitches on the top edge, but being careful to turn the braid inside out and pick up stitches, because you're going to do the crown long enough that the braid will be inside out, and you flip it up and over to give you a double thickness over your ears. I love this hat. I think I've made 6 or 7 of them. I cannot recommend it enough, and so it is cooking right along. There's 18 repeats. I think I'm 9 or 10 in right now. I could tell you a lot of strategies, and I probably will in the blather because I'm so happy with some of the things I've been doing lately. But I want to look more at managing anxiety with some strategies from dialectical behavioral therapy. One of my favorites you can use for any kind of problem, anxiety or depression, but I find this especially effective with anxiety. Anxiety is about a certain kind of intrusive thinking where you're scaring yourself. Okay. Now, depression certainly is about intrusive thinking, but it's a different set of emotions attached. It's kind of hopelessness. So I find what I'm about to say does work with depression. Like I said, DBT is so great because it's so universal. But I really like this for anxiety. Use at will. This is called TIP. T as in Thomas, I, P as in Peter, P as in Peter. So 2 P's. This is when you're anxious, when you're feeling out of control, when you feel like your emotions are rocketing. You do these 4 things. Any one of them or more. Okay, the first one is temperature. Change your body temperature. When I was in Britain and I found out my father had a terminal diagnosis, every British person I knew gave me strong hot tea with sugar. Okay, that's the best example of temperature I know. I can remember talking to my Yorkshire roommate saying, "Why on earth do you think a cup of tea is going to help me? My father is dying." And good old Mary's just going, "Drink it, okay? Just drink it and we'll talk about that." And it did make me feel better. It didn't fix the problem, but I felt suddenly able to manage it. That is the power of a hot cup of tea. That is the power of heat. Of course, when you put hot anything in your mouth, the inside of your mouth is red for a reason. It's got direct, very close contact with blood vessels. So you put something hot in there, you're warming up your blood flow. You're suddenly sending warm blood all over your body. It's a brilliant thing. I love you, British people. I want to come home. Anyway, it's so wonderful. So, the other thing is warm blankets. One of the most effective things I learned as a clinician was to have blankets in my office. And you don't mention them. You just throw them around. And periodically, if I see a patient starting to wig out, I will pick up a blanket and just, calmly start wrapping it around me without saying anything. Usually they just get the hint. They grab a blanket. If they don't, I say, "Oh, I'm a little cold in here. Do you want a blanket?" Or you just say, you look like you could use a warm blanket. Why don't you just grab one of the blankets if you're okay with that? And it really depends on who the patient is, how they're going to react when you say that. But yeah, it's just a simple cure-all. Get warm. Get a blanket on yourself. The other option is a cool drink. When people are freaking out, sometimes you'll hear people say, "Let me get you a cold glass of water." And sometimes the act of sipping and drinking, the slow swallowing, helps to regulate breathing. You know how I am about anxiety and breathing, right? So sipping will help you to regulate breathing, but also the coolness. Again, you're putting it in your mouth. You're going to cool down. It's going to cool. You're sending cool blood flow. It slows you down a little bit. So temperature change is an amazing thing. Get warmer, get cooler. You're in the sun, you've had a bad run, or you've had a bad soccer game or whatever. For heaven's sake, drink the Gatorade. Particularly if it's cold, it's going to cool you down. It's going to calm you down. Okay, the I is for intense exercise. Yes, I said it. I know. My least favorite clinical recommendation, if you were to poll all my patients, please do some intense exercise. Intense exercise is like the S of the ACCEPTS acronym. It brings you into your body. It takes you out of your head, or it focuses your head on one thing. So if I can't sleep at night, it's true, I plank. I'll set a timer with Alexa. There, letting her bonk in the background. I'll set a 1-minute timer and I'll plank. And frankly, I usually have to crawl into the bed after that because I'm not that strong. The other thing is I'll bike. I'll get on my fit desk and I'll just bike hard sometimes. But intense exercise shifts your focus. Again, you could look at the ACCEPTS acronym and say, this is the A, do an activity to distract yourself. This is the S, do something sensory. This is the T, do some thought stopping. This is the P, a push away. For 1 minute I will plank, and then I can think about my problems if I still have any bandwidth after that 1 minute plank. Okay, so again, you're going to hear a lot of repetition in the DBT strategies. That's great. That's great. because whichever one sticks with you, you don't have to know them all. But again, if for one person this sounds like the A from accept's great. For someone else, this is the I from tip, terrific. Okay, but intense exercise. Please, the usual warnings here are in effect. If you can't do intense exercise, for heaven's sake, don't. You should certainly talk to your doctor about the types of exercise you do, and this should be a routine discussion with your physician. You want to make sure your doctor knows what you're doing, okay? But again, if you can do intense exercise, great. And for those of you who can't, you're just going to have to forgive me. I'll tell you, my intense exercise ain't what it used to be, kids. I'm 61 years old. But again, you have to use your common sense. It's not meant to punish you or to insult you if you're unable to do some of these recommendations. That's why we have so many. Okay? Do the ones you can do. Do the ones that work for you. If you have a broken leg, I'm pretty sure riding your fit desk ain't going to help. That one's dedicated to you, Gigi. I should have said knee. Meanwhile, the P, paced breathing. Oh, y'all know how I am about breathing. Oh no, Dr. Gemma's going to describe the army breath. 4, 5, 8. One more time. Okay, paced breathing. You know it. I know it. We all know it. We all love it. When you're anxious, you need air. Anxiety is a biochemical response to the increase of carbon dioxide in your blood. If you get enough air, it's pretty hard to stay anxious. Intense exercise is going to change your breathing, isn't it? Yes, it is. We're so clever. We fool you in so many ways. You do one thing, it turns out you're doing like 5. Isn't that beautiful? So paced breathing. Again, if you have trouble doing paced breathing, which a lot of people do, it took me a while to learn to do the army breath. And I teach people this all the time, and it took me weeks to get it right myself. There is no wrong. It's like meditation. There is no wrong, guys. Try it. Because look, if you're not breathing, you don't want to hyperventilate. You don't want to inhale really fast, exhale really slow without holding your breath. You will hyperventilate. Okay, you inhale, you hold, you exhale. You inhale fast, you hold, you exhale. But if you feel like you can't do that, then you just inhale slowly, exhale slowly at the same speed. Any breathing is going to be better than holding your breath. Common sense will tell us that. So any breathing, but paced breathing. If you learned how to breathe in yoga class, the great yoga trick, right? Where you press one nostril shut and you breathe in through the other one. Then you press the breathe in nostril shut and breathe out through the nostril that you were previously holding shut. So, breathe in through your left nostril, then breathe out through your right nostril. Sure, anything, any paced breathing is good. Anything is better than too much carbon dioxide in the blood, kids. That's just, whatever you got to do, you do, right? The second P is progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. PMR is a wonderful trick. You start at your toes, you work your way up to your head. What are you going to do? You're going to start at your toes, and you're going to tighten your toes, just one muscle group. You're going to keep all the other muscle groups relaxed. That in itself takes a certain amount of focus and concentration. So again, you can hear the mindfulness, you can hear the push away, you can hear the vacation from the acronym IMPROVE, you can hear the one thing from IMPROVE. Okay, these all overlap. All right, so you tighten your toes. You tighten them so hard your knuckles should turn white. That's how, on your toes, that's how tight you're doing this. Hold it for a count of 20 and relax. And then you move up to the next muscle group further up your foot that you can tighten. I think of this as kind of the balls and arch of my foot. Okay, you're going to go to your heel. You're going to stretch your toe down. You're going to do that for 20. You're going to push your toe up. You're going to do that for 20. Then you're going to work up your leg. Okay, you're going to work your way all the way up to your scalp and do that too. You're going to be amazed what you can tighten and loosen in your body that you didn't know about. Going to go from your shoulders down your arms to your fingers. No, actually you're not. What's really going to happen, if you do this in bed at night, it's probably going to put you to sleep when you get to your hips. Most people have a hard time getting past their knees if they're doing this at night to fall asleep. It is a great sleep trick. Okay, but PMR is this wonderful chemical trick you play on your body. It's a hack. What it is, when you tighten your muscles really, really tight and release them, you get a flood of lactic acid. Lactic acid helps you get sleepy. Now, the really great trick is, all right, think about what you're doing. You're starting as far from your brain as you can. And so you're going to have your toes send a flood of lactic acid to your brain. But meanwhile, you're using the next closest muscles and the next closest muscles and the next closest muscles. So in effect, what's going on is by the time you get closer to your brain, you're going to have sent this tidal wave starting with the rush from your toes and working its way upward. You're going to have this continuous wave of lactic acid hitting your brain. Of course, it's going to knock you out. It's going to relax you. So that is the tip strategy for managing anxiety. Okay. Shoot. Well, shoot, strangely, I would have to say is probably related to my journaling and 9 to 9 rule. And I was thinking last night, I've got nothing for shoot. And then I realized, yeah, I do, but I haven't been thinking of this in the right way. Okay, so since I've been going on the journaling binge and the 9 to 9 screens rule, I have extra time. And that's been interesting. Now, I said this before, but I'm so blown away by this. All right, so where am I on this whole thing? And I know this could count as a strategy, so thank you for your patience. Well, the journaling I started, trying to use Stoic values, trying to identify them as I wrote. That has faded after about 2 weeks into, I wake up in the morning and I'm using the 9 to 9 screen rule. So no blue light screens, phone, TV, tablets, laptop, none of that, till 9 a.m. And I turn them off at 9 p.m. There have been a couple times I've broken it. Life happens. But this has worked insanely well. Okay, so now, because I turn my screens off at 9 p.m., I have an hour to wind down. My sleep has improved. Pretty impressive. So I'm falling asleep at 10 and I'm waking up at 6 a.m. And now 6 a.m. has become a habit. So even if I stay up later, I'm waking up at 6. This is Stoic. Stoicism, one of the values, get up early. It's life-changing, and it really is. Okay, so now I'm waking up at 6. Now what? Well, first of all the dogs get fed, all the dogs go out. And now I've got 3 hours before I turn on a screen. So what am I going to do instead? Well, yoga, stretching, walking the dogs, playing with the dogs. And also I'm doing what I used to call project touch-ups. And those of you who followed me through the quarantine on Instagram will remember these. Project touch-up is 15-minute jobs around the house. No job takes more than 15 minutes, okay? And so I do things like dust the blinds or vacuum one room. I'll come back to that one in a minute, okay? Or clean a toilet, wipe down the whole toilet and scrub out the bowl. Something like that. Well, back to the journaling, because I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I make a cup of coffee, I sit up in bed, and I write in my journal just how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. And it usually doesn't take much because I'm not very awake, frankly. But then I write the list of everything I want to do today. And that's everything fun as well as everything for work. Because I know now that to-do lists are deadly. You write a to-do list to get through in one day and you say, I didn't get through my to-do list. Now you're reinforcing I'm kind of a failure and you hate your to-do list. And that's because we've been trained in a working world to do these productivity to-do lists. And we've been trained you have to be productive at a certain level or you're some kind of failure, and we have productivity reports at work and all that stuff, right? Okay, I'm not talking about that. Here's what my to-do list sounds like today. Dog to the vet, schedule a neutering, do a third of the apron around the tub, clean a third of it, clean the bedroom floor, dispose of one object on my desk and craft table. In other words, I'm cleaning them off bit by bit because it was too overwhelming to clean them off all at once. Record episode 53, reload episode 52. Make a dentist appointment, make an eyeglasses appointment, clean a litter box, find the yarn for Jerry's sweater, clean the floor, the big bathroom, review my dental and vision insurance, get some pads for under the dog crates, prep my notes for tomorrow, make some brownies, reattest for one provider, go climbing, go to Trader Joe's, knit on the socks, knit on the heart scarf, knit on the coronet band, knit on the Ricky hat, blah, 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 blah. Okay. What you're really finding out, I can't do all this in one day. That's important because now I'm not setting myself up for a sense of failure. I'm just saying, here are all the things I could do when I get a few minutes break. And so when I get a few minutes break, I look at the list. You notice there's a lot of fun things, a lot of knitting, all that sort of thing. Okay, there's some things that are priorities, like I had an appointment to take the dog to the vet today. That had to be done. But you notice those things are all different priority levels. They're all different amounts of time. So what's really great in that opening 3 hours of my day, I get up, I make that to-do list, I start thinking about how I'm going to prioritize them, and I have a cup of coffee. And I usually will knit. One of the things on my list, I'm working on continuing ed classes that I can listen to while I'm knitting in bed. So I'm really enjoying that. And so the idea is, you cannot possibly do your whole list. So it's never going to be about failure. You're just talking about everything you'd like to do, fun and otherwise, and they take all different levels of time. Like in there I said, order some pads to go under the dog crate. Well, that's 30 seconds online to find those and just order them, right? As opposed to something like make brownies or mop a floor or whatever. So I try to keep those in 15-minute increments where I can. So if I get a few spare minutes, I just go, well, I'll just do this one thing. It takes no time. So for example, I was talking about, we have a big soaking tub and there's a apron around it that gets dusty. And I realized I was trying to do the apron and I couldn't. And then I just thought, well, yeah, it's going to take like half an hour to really clean it. So I didn't. Instead, I'm just doing 1/3 of it, each side and then the back, here and there. And suddenly the thing is clean and my bathroom looks much better. Okay, so the odd thing about this is it's freed up so much time for me. And I didn't expect that. And I've also realized a lot of the stuff I'm doing online, I really don't want to do. It's trivial and sure, it's good for relaxation. I'm not dissing it, but I don't want to do as much of it as I was doing. And by doing it, by using screens to constantly entertain and comfort myself, I was less creative, I was less productive in happy ways like knitting, and I was exercising less. So what I would say under shoot is strangely the journaling and the 9 to 9 screens rule. I've been getting better sleep and I've been moving more and doing more things that I want to do. Speaking of that, after I finish this, I go rock climbing. I've been off the rock climbing for a number of strange reasons, which I'll get to in the blather, but I'm really looking forward to it. On to the fluffy books. I'm reading The White Magic 5 and Dime, which is the Tarot Card Mysteries by, let me read this, Hawker, Smith, and Falco. I do not like it very much. It's too hard-nosed and too formulaic. New girl in town inherits a metaphysical bookstore from her mother, who was basically a scam artist, and meets the local cop, who of course you can tell they're going to fall in love, yada, yada, yada. The con artist thing, the tarot thing, those are new angles, but it just feels so tediously formulaic. And the writing is nothing special. The characters don't interest me. For one thing, I can't even envision them, except for one. Most of them are so underdescribed. So, I really like characterization. This is not the book for that. For plot, well, it's a little bit on the original side, but it's not enough to attract me. I have not started Odds on Miss Seton. It's the last of the Miss Seton books written in the late 50s, early 60s by Heron Carvick. There are sequels written by Hamilton Crane and Charles Hamilton. I know Hamilton Crane is a woman, and those are supposed to be quite good. But I think, frankly, Miss Seton is kind of a retro character. And while I'm sure the sequels are good, I think you're going to kind of lose what is likable about the series. Any book written in England in the 50s and 60s has its problems, as I've talked about before. There's a lot of cultural bias and all that. The reason I like the Heron Carvick Miss Seton's is he does it to everybody pretty even-handedly. I think I've mentioned he strangely and happily, I guess strangely because I'm American and there's so much of this in America, that it seems strange when it doesn't happen, but he does not go after black stereotypes. It's more like the African he has in one novel is a foreigner, and all foreigners fit the same stereotype, unless you're Italian, in which case you're a superstitious imbecile, I say as, an Italian-American. But I can let it ride because he certainly takes the spit out of the Brits, out of the cops, out of men, sexism, all authoritarian thinking. He goes for it all. So I enjoy the Miss Setons by Heron Carvick, but I think that's about all I want to take of them. I am listening to Terra Incognita by Ruth Downey, which is part of the Medicus series. These are mysteries set, I think, in 1st century Christian era Rome. Well, the Roman Empire. They're actually in Britain in the two books I've been reading. And it's very interesting, and I'm enjoying them. This is kind of like the Falco series by Lindsay Davis, that she's trying to make these kind of funny and frustrating for the level-headed, intelligent protagonist, who is a doctor in the Roman army as opposed to being a detective like Falco, informer if you're Roman. I really like the series so far. I'm kind of surprised. The first book, Medicus, I thought was okay. A little bit bumpy, but good. Terra Incognita, I'm enjoying a great deal. One of the things I'm liking is how she is playing off the idiosyncrasies of Roman thought. Rousseau, the medicus in question, the doctor in question, is Gallic, a Roman citizen in the army in the north of Britain, I believe. Seems to me they were around Chester in the first book. I think it's Chester. Anyway, because they're using the Roman names. Shows what I know, right? But anyway, so Rousseau's an interesting character because he's not your downtown Rome-born citizen. So he's got the Gallic thing going. He's got the kind of typical issues of the time that he's struggling with. And he's Roman in his thinking, but he's kind of open-minded because he's a medical man and he's seen a lot of suffering. And it has been made clear that that has influenced his perspective as a Roman, that he's not quite as hard-nosed and biased as your average Roman military person. And it's a really nice way to give him values that are a little more tolerable for us. I'm not sure I'd actually like a Roman from that era if I met him in person. For one thing, he would think I was an idiot because I'm a woman. But anyway, he's a very interesting character. Played off against that is Tilla, his British slave. Except, you know, again, this is not slavery in the American Deep South, early 19th century slavery. This is the Roman concept, which is widely variable from absolute insane cruelty up to, you know, you're working for a master on the good side, and if the master's a nice person, you can sort of buy your way to freedom, and you'll be a freedman and have some pretty good rights and be able to live a pretty good life. I mean, Roman slavery goes the whole gamut, from insane levels of cruelty to kind of, you know, I don't want to call it reasonable, but you have a chance to improve yourself. So Tilla's in that latter category that Rousseau doesn't quite know how he wants to handle having a slave. And it's just a very interesting book. Rousseau's ex-wife, of course, is an upper-class Roman matriarchal snob who would have a very different take on what a slave is for compared to Rousseau. So it's interesting the way all this is being played off against each other. And again, the interesting thing is in the Roman Empire, the cultural bias is not skin color. It's more about where you come from. Are you a citizen? Are you a freed person or a slave? How close to Rome were you born? Who do you know? So I'm kind of enjoying that. It's kind of refreshing. Something I really like, R2. Who's R2? Short for R2-D2. Arumba. Yes, they had a Roomba sale on Amazon, and they may still. He, she, they, whatever, is a 600 series Roomba, I think, and was supposed to be some insanely high price, $400 or $500, and they cut it to under $200. I bought it. I don't need a really smart Roomba. I just need something to clean my floors, okay? R2, you name your Roomba. R2 is great. A friend of mine out in Utah, who is pretty hardcore sensible, she got a Roomba that she calls Rosie after the robot in the Jetsons. And she kept saying, Rosie has changed our lives. It's saved our sanity. I kept thinking, look, it's nice to have your floors vacuumed. How good can this be? We have a 2-level house. Most of our house our private areas are literally one step raised from the common areas in the living room, dining room, and kitchen. So I'm thinking, we have to keep picking the thing up. I don't know, dog hair, cleaning it out, blah, blah, blah. We kill vacuums around here because we have, pet hair. Okay, well, I bit because I thought for under $200, now's the time. So I got R2, named it in the program. R2. The program is on, there's an app for my phone. It's also on my tablets. And I'm in love with R2. R2 has the dust and dirt capacity of a handheld dust buster vacuum. However, in a vacuum that powers itself around your floor and dusts your floor with rotating brushes, that is a very powerful combination. R2, you put the charger out where R2 can roll on and off it by himself. I keep trying to call it her, but I have to admit R2's a guy to me. So sometimes it's also it, sometimes it's they. We just like pronouns galore here. It's a robot, dude. It can have any gender it needs to have. I mean, if you're having a problem with this, seriously, calm down, all right? But the idea is R2 rolls around and is really, really wonderful. And I could not believe how well R2 cleaned our floors. That I put it on the common areas. I moved one couch away from where it normally sits because it had a huge amount of dust under it. And I said, I just want to see how it does on this huge dust pile. The answer is R2 did brilliantly. And I looked at it and said, good Lord, this is life-changing. I cleaned it out. I turned it upside down. I cleaned out its rollers because they were clogged with dog hair. I didn't even think there was any dog hair on the floor. The rollers are clogged, paralyzed with it. Cleaned it out. Takes about 5 minutes, even with the dog hair congestion. Very, very user-friendly to clean. Very user-obvious how to clean. Flipped it back, let it charge, started it again. Every day, R2 is cleaning our floors. We're on the third day. And I got all the furniture moved and let R2 clean all the dust up. Bam. Sneezing went crazy the first day because R2 was raising so much dust. Now, wow, my sinuses are clear. The common rooms are dust-free. So, of course, then I lifted R2 up the step. Now, meanwhile, remember the common rooms, because what I didn't say is we have ledges that the R2 can go under furniture in some cases. And in our kitchen, our cabinets have little overhangs, little ledges above the floor. R2 fits under them. I'm always sweeping those babies out. Well, R2 did it for me and did it far more thoroughly and went farther into the corners than I'm always able to get with a broom, right? So I look at the kitchen floor, it's been swept. So it takes nothing at all to go in there with a mop and sponge mop it. It literally took me under 5 minutes because somebody else, R2, already swept it for me. Wow! So it's easy to mop the floors. We've been on these wood floors. We haven't refinished them since we bought the house. It's been 20 years. They need refinishing. So in the grain of the wood, there's a lot of dust embedded. There was a lot of dust embedded. That's what R2's been picking up. My husband came home in the midst of my first revelations and said, what is that? And I said, oh, that's cute. And I said, no, look at the floor. And he looked at it and he went, good Lord, that looks great. And I said, I know, it's amazing. And he goes, we should run that every day. Yes, that's the point. So we finally lifted her up and put her on the hallway floors to go into the bedrooms and found out she works perfectly fine as long as you don't have a raised threshold. She'll go right over the carpet. She'll go right from the hardwood onto the carpet. And I said, wow, okay, so this opens up the possibility of moving all the furniture in our bedrooms and just letting her sweep around, clean her out, sweep around. Frankly, she does a better job than I do with a vacuum. Now, she cannot handle giant dust bunnies. What does she do with them? Either they clog her up, which is easy enough to clean. She'll keep going pretty well. She doesn't seem to have problems. She's just not as effective. So, every time she finishes a job, you flip her over, you clean her out. It's not hard to do. Even with our massive dust and dog hair, it only takes me 10 minutes at the worst if she's really clogged up with dog hair. No burning, no problem like it's killing the rollers. We just keep cleaning her out because it is a lot easier to sit down on the floor in the garage and empty her directly into our trash bag and pick out all the hair, rip it out, frankly. I haven't had to cut it out, which amazes me. It's far easier to do that and then turn her loose again and get these insanely clean floors than it is to haul 20 pounds of vacuum all over the floor by hand myself. This morning, she went into the master bedroom. You just open the doors and let her explore, as they said. She went into the master bedroom, And I thought, well, I haven't moved much. There's a lot of junk on the floor. You should move the junk on the floor. I moved some of it. She still did a great job. I was stunned by how good the parts she covered looked. I let her run loose in the beloved son's room. Again, I moved everything of his to the edge of the room. It's not a perfect job, but it looks better than it did when I woke up this morning. I am in love with R2, the Roomba. I really have to tell you, this is not a high-end Roomba, and the change is astonishing. And she's programmable through the app, so you can just have her turn on every day at the same time. I have her turn on at 9 a.m. in the morning. Actually, I'm going to back that down. The boys leave at about 7:30 on working days for me. So I'm probably going to have her turn on automatically at 8 a.m. and just let her do her thing. And it's making the whole house easier to clean. I mean, it's just like, wow, okay, let her run over the kitchen floor. You got 5 minutes, take a mop and sponge it down. She hasn't made it to the master bathroom yet. She is not going into the small bathroom because we pick up water on the bathroom floor from the shower there. The floor is uneven. I am worried about her getting wet. I do not know if that's any risk, but I'm not going to try it. But the small bathroom is literally like slightly bigger than a broom closet. It's not hard to sweep that out. It wouldn't be hard to block off the end near the shower that gets wet and let her do the rest if I really wanted to just let her close the bathroom door, let her stay in there bouncing around until she really cleans under all those ledges. Dust the baseboards, pretty amazing. Okay, so I am in love with the Roomba. I have to tell you, it is a Roomba. There are various different types of automatic vacuum. This is the Roomba. On to the blather at last. What a week. Well, first of all, we got the Roomba, and that was life-changing. But there's so much more. Because I have all this extra time, I realized when I went to the big psychotherapy conference last December, they said you can keep earning these credits on demand through mid-December of 2021. This is great for me because my license renewed on October 1st. And so now any credits I earn are on my current cycle. So I used that conference last December to complete my requirements for my last cycle that ended September 30th. Now I can use the ones I didn't do to complete this cycle. And on top of it, on November 30th, the new version of Evolution comes out, and it's a bit smaller, and they're only going to let the units hang in until late December. So I'm going to have this overlap of the two Evolutions where I can get units from any of their online on-demand classes. So you know I'm going to go crazy with this, right? You know I'm going to take all these units and finish all that up. I'm really excited about that. So I've just been getting up at 6 in the morning or 6:30 thereabouts and doing all my personal hygiene, doing a few little things here and there, and then I just sit and work on whichever projects I feel like working on while listening to continuing ed. So, oh my goodness, I did a wonderful class on guilt and shame in therapy by one of my absolute favorite goddesses of my profession, Christine Podesky, who's just so wonderful, cognitive behavioral, just a goddess. And I got her book, which I'll probably review, which is the Mind Over Mood workbook, which I'm going to recommend just based on what I saw in that seminar. I've got a copy here, though, so I'll probably be reviewing it later. All sorts of helpful worksheets for self-help. Amazing. I did an excellent class from one of the old gods, Otto Kernberg, who does personality disorders, especially the more dangerous ones. While he does not teach the way I would like him to about how to handle them in therapy, the theoretical background alone was worth its weight in gold. And this morning I did 2 hours by Dr. Patricia Arredondo on multiculturalism in therapy, which was so good. Now, multiculturalism in therapy is a relatively, you can imagine, recent development. Not as recent as you think. They were trying in the 90s when I was in grad school. But there was so little support in the profession at the time. There was so little awareness of how much we needed more of it. Now, it's kind of all over the place. And the courses, as all courses are very uneven in their quality. Arredondo was great because, thank you, ma'am, I've been waiting for literally 30 years to hear somebody talk about being a woman versus being a white person, a brown person, And that's kind of sad because, we know there's been feminism and feminist theory in therapy for a long time, and yet it wasn't addressed in the perspective of culture. It's just a very, very good 2 hours. The questions were off the scale useful. It's everything you ever wanted to ask. It was such a good seminar. Anyway, so that's 6 hours over the last 4 days. So I'm just loving this. And again, I owe it all to the 9 to 9 screens and journaling, guys. So I am knitting away in my continuing ed. I'm hoping by the end of this month to have gotten 26 hours so that I only need the live hours from the upcoming conference. Meanwhile, last Sunday, that is now 8 days ago, we went to see the movie Dune in a cinema. And there were only 20 people there. They tried to seat us all together, assigned seating, dumbest thing I've ever seen. None of us got sick. It was all good. And the movie's great. It's beautifully filmed. And that's what you're really there for. The cinematography should get an Oscar. It's astonishingly beautiful. The costumes, the casting, it's all pretty good. I love the casting. I don't like Paul. I think he's a little too, he's not as strong and ferocious looking as I would expect a kid with his background to be. And I think the whole concept of awakening in the story is where you see him become more thoughtful and more self-aware. They kind of cast him as this sort of thin but fit, kind of reedy guy who does a good job, but he's not who I see as Paul. Everybody else, I thought the casting was insanely good. I just have to get over Kyle MacLachlan, the young Kyle MacLachlan as Paul, back in the David Lynch production, because I think that was great casting. Okay, so in the midst of this, I say, okay, we're getting on to the mindless violence. I don't really want to watch it. I go out to take a break. Realize I have a phone message, frantic and hysterical, from the woman who sold me Baron 11 years ago. She has a weird story going on. Her original breeding newfs, Baron's parents, died quite a while back now. She finally broke down and bought a male, but she bought him from a better breeder than she did the first time. Very nice, very typey male, Stormy. And she gets a female, Bindi. But the guy who breeds these dogs also breeds collies. And what they didn't know was Bindi was not pedigree. Bindi was from a pure Newf litter, they thought. And then all the puppies started looking funny. So Bindi looks like a collie in a Newfie suit, almost long nose. Collie coloring except black, and then white chest shield, collie white boots on her legs, half her tail is white, but a whippy tail. Anyway, didn't work. Okay, and that all would have been difficult enough. She goes to the breeder. She says, I wanted a purebred female. I wanted to breed. Hello, blankets. You would like me to feed you? Because you're not on daylight savings time, are you? I know. I don't know if you can hear that. She's talking to me in the background. Okay. Now, everything would have been hunky-dory. Now, the obvious choice would have been neuter Bindi immediately. And meanwhile, she gets another female. However, her life is out of control. She's very elderly. Her husband's way older than her. He seems to be very sick. She gets unexpectedly sick. While she's in the hospital, guess who breeds? Bindi with the male, Stormy. Now she's got a litter of what she's got is 3/4 Newfies, 1/4 collie puppies. 9 of them, 2 of them die. She just can't give the time and attention to keeping a big litter alive. They're currently about 14 weeks old. And she's frantic to give them away. Now we have a problem. We've got 7 beautiful puppies. Well, now there's 6 because I took one. She was frantic. She said, they act like Newfs. Really, you could have a Newf, except they've got this little collie blood. All right. So I say to my husband, he comes out of Dune. I see the end, 15 minutes of Dune. He comes out. I said, how'd you like a free Newfie puppy? He goes, are you kidding me? I said, well, let's go get sushi and we'll talk about it. So I tell him the whole story. He says, we'll go tomorrow. He does not say this in front of my son. He says, we'll go tomorrow. I want to see the puppies. He said, if they look good, if they seem kind of Newfie typey, he said, we can certainly take one if it seems Newf enough. But he said, I don't want, he really wants a male Newfie. That's what he really wants. because we've had 2 great male Newfs. But he said, let's go see. I mean, it doesn't sound good. She needs help, clearly. And I said, it is 75% Newf. I mean, I've had mutts in my time. I'm quite fond of mutts. But our situation is always a working situation. We're on a farm. We're on a ranch. And we use our dogs for certain duties. And they have to be reliable for that. So, Eleanor is here because I always wanted a collie, but I always wanted a herding dog. Strangely, our pony Roxy herds too. Roxy herds goats and sheep without us telling her to. So we've got a herding pony. But before I realized that, I said, it's really good to have a herding dog. That's what the shepherds are for. The shepherds are also shepherds. They protect me when I run, and they've certainly had to. The Newfs, my husband wanted a large, sweet dog who would protect the family. Again, our dogs have jobs. And they have to do certain things. They have to get along with a lot of other animals. So Newfies, of course, but also Western European herding type dogs work well with that. They get along generally with cats, sheep, llamas, alpacas, and ponies. And they have to have the sense to manage those animals. So they get along with Roxy, the pony. She doesn't get along with them. So they have to be sensible enough to realize that, to be able to learn that lesson instead of continually getting kicked in the head. So again, my dogs always have jobs, and that's why I have always gone, well, not always, but most of the time we've gone for pedigrees, because we are looking for certain dogs that do a certain job, and that's the most reliable way to get one. And I said, now we're looking at a Newfie Collie cross. Those are 2 good farm dogs. What do we have to lose? So we agreed. So we went down. We're sitting there. All the puppies fall all over us. They're totally Newfie. They look Newfie. They act Newfie. Noses are a little too fine looking, but on the whole, we saw 7 Newfie puppies. You would never know. And she said, I am being honest about this. I'm just giving them away. I said, okay. So all the puppies flood around us, and the 3 senior dogs, the 2 females, Bindi, and the new purebred female, Desi, and Stormy, come to see us, and it's all very lovely. And then the puppies sort of get interested in other things, except one puppy comes and sits right in front of my husband and just looks at him with those melting chocolate Newfie eyes. Well, she wouldn't leave him. The other puppies would flow towards us and away from us, and this puppy would get sort of washed away with the tide and then would come back and sit staring up at my husband. Can you guess which puppy we took? We didn't have a chance to sex it. We thought it was a male. You can hear where this is going, can't you? My husband so wanted a male, but he said to me, regardless of what it is, that is the personality dog right there. And I can't tell you how lovely it is to watch a puppy basically swear its undying love to your husband. Particularly a 28-pound puppy who is 14 weeks old. So, as the vet said today, she will be a pony when she is finished growing. So, we took her home. Did you hear the her? And it was very nice. We had a big mat, bath mat. We went and bought a giant bath mat on our way in at Target. Covered the seat of the car with it. It was great. She had eaten too much that morning. She was excited and worked up. And the owner was just throwing food everywhere and letting the dogs graze on it, which cannot be good in some. You do that with very young puppies. I wouldn't recommend that with older dogs at all. And the reason why was exactly what we saw, that the puppy had gorged. And yeah, all over the mat. But it was pretty good because it just smelled like kibble. And she was great. All the way home, she was quiet and calm. And we petted her and talked to her. She didn't panic. She's fit in beautifully. She tried to be friendly to both the girl dogs. Eleanor just saw her as a hostile dog who didn't belong on the property. So we're working on that. It's been a week. Blankets is fine with her. She tries to play with both of them. She licks their muzzles, which is how puppies lick the muzzles of senior dogs as a sign of subordination, that they are recognizing the dog's seniority status. Eleanor is unhappy, but she's coping. We named the puppy Captain. We did check her gender and decided, yes, she is female, and the vet confirmed this morning, you can't tell at our age. She's a lovely dog. She's a lovely dog. She is one of the best personality dogs I've ever met, and I've seen a lot of dogs in my time. And she just has the best of the Newfie. She is low prey drive, which is interesting. With the collie blood, you'd expect more prey drive than she's got. Collies tend to have high prey drive. That's why they're good herding dogs. So again, she acts like a Newfie. Very low prey drive. Very kind, very loving, extremely affectionate, good-tempered, tolerant. Eleanor spent a lot of time barking and growling at her. She doesn't bark or growl back. She just looks at her in a kind of puzzled way and backs away and doesn't challenge her. And so we're being careful to make sure Eleanor gets little treats when the baby gets little treats, etc. Blankets doesn't care. Blankets is just happy with her. Blankets is sort of the universal dog. She fits in with everybody. So that's been very good. The only downside, on the way there, we were in an accident. Somebody rear-ended us while I was driving. It was all okay. Car's undamaged. I have whiplash. So I had a week of headaches, and so that's one reason I haven't been exercising. But I've been pretty happy just puttering around the house and getting things clean and clean and clean. So now we have Captain, the Newfoundland, who we adore. She's such a good dog. And there are pictures of her meeting Blankets, sitting in the car, playing with my husband, meeting my son. We're just so happy. And Minerva gets the last word. What has Minerva been doing? She's slowly leaving the back bedroom. We keep the bedrooms closed because they have carpeting, and Captain thinks that's to pee on. So right now we're working on the housebreaking. It's going very well. She understands the word outside. She understands the word crate. She also understands sit. She's working on shake. I think she's got it. She knows her name, and it's just all positive reinforcement and love. It's good to be a Cogby therapist at these moments. Minerva took about 5 days to come out of the back bedroom. Captain jumps 6 feet away, looks at her, and tries to invite her to play, and puppy barks. Minerva doesn't run away. She stands her ground, but she doesn't get upset. She just stands her ground. So we're working on it. We never leave them unsupervised, in case you're wondering. So Minerva, her last word this week would be gimme shelter, that she now wants to sit in my lap all the time. There's a picture of her doing it. I'm wearing my crocheted retro stripes sweater that I made about 1.5 years ago now, I think. And she's on the crocheted temperature blanket, so it's a very crocheted picture. And Minerva is just very affectionate with me. She's a little startled because I'm not with her as much because she's in the back bedroom with the door closed. So when she is with me, she wants to be sitting on me, talking to me. She did bite me affectionately this morning. We're working on it. Just for the sheer heck of it, I put a picture of Blankets on her favorite spot, which is on one of our big sofas. Blankets, when she's had enough of the puppy, that's where she goes. Puppy doesn't seem to climb on the furniture. She will, sooner or later. It's kind of inevitable. She's done it. Captain just isn't that interested in sitting on the furniture. So that's life here in the crazy. And now we have Captain, and we are a 3-dog family again. Well, it certainly reduces all those COVID fears, doesn't it? We have something new to focus on, and our lives feel lively and beautiful. If you're hearing yapping in the background, that is Captain, because she wants to get out of her crate, and she wants lunch. So, let's not forget to get our booster shots. If you're not vaccinated, get your vaccines, wear your mask, wash your hands, socially distance. Most of all, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.